thank the organisers of this conference for affording us the opportunity to present here this afternoon. PE holds a special place in our hearts, so it's indeed a great pleasure to be here, and we're looking forward to making this an interactive session. So to the organisers, thanks very much. To you colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, it's indeed an honour to be here today. I've been asked to speak on a subject which I think will also bear particular interest, and I think to a degree it's attracted some curiosity globally, and that is, how do you turn very much a domestic-based business into a global multinational business? And I say that with the understanding that Aspen today is probably in the top 3 most globalized South African companies. If you sort of throw Sasol into that mix, I'm not sure where SAB Miller are today, but they're not going to be South African owned in the not too distant future, their merger. So I think it places us certainly in the top 3. And what I wanted to focus on today is really 2 things. The one is some of the management lessons that we've learned along the way. And I think in particular, what's been a humbling experience for me at Aspen has been, if you set your mind at something, if you've got that will, almost that obsession to succeed, it's amazing what can be achieved. So those are the 2 central themes that I want to speak to today. Let me cast the clock back in time to 1997, because that's when Aspen was incepted, and contrary to common belief, it wasn't incepted in Port Elizabeth. It was incepted in a 2-bedroom house on the Berea Gravel in Durban, and started by two founding founders of Aspen, Stephen Sard, who happens to be my boss, and his partner Gus Attridge. They're both still active in the business. Trust me, they're overactive in the business now. It's maybe why I appeared here a bit later. I took a quick call there. Okay, this is good. Thanks very much. It's better if I just walk around. So what I was saying is, we go back to this 2-bedroom apartment on the Berea. Just picture it in your mind. And surround that building by 32 factories. So in 1997, just a 2-bedroom apartment. You can barely pay the rent for that apartment, for that house. And now, sort of 20 years, 2 decades later, put a whole lot of factories in various jurisdictions and locations around that house. So that's kind of where we've moved from. And thank goodness my slides have come up now, so can I get the next slide? Okay, so I thought I'd just, before I show you the 2-bedroom house in Gravel, let me show you a site that's probably familiar to many of you who live in PE. And this is what our flagship manufacturing facility in Port Elizabeth looks like. I'll discuss some of the different units and what they do in a couple of moments, but let's just go to the next slide. So this is the house I was talking about in Gravel. And just by the way, I used to go down for management meetings every Friday. This house, and sort of the admin was in the 1-bedroom, marketing and sales in the other bedroom. And then I think you had finance in the lounge. I mean, that's literally how it was. That's how Aspen started. And as I said, this is what you've got today. So you've got facilities in France, Notre Dame de Bonneville, the Netherlands, Oss. You've got facilities in Australia, Germany, many other jurisdictions, Brazil, Mexico, etc. But our flagship facility remains this one here, Port Elizabeth. And I'm going to come back to that facility in a couple of moments. Okay, so let me go back to here. So after 1997, Aspen incepted, did a reverse listing in 1999 through a company, a vehicle called Medhold, gets listed on the JSE, and a few months later, South Africa's second biggest pharmaceutical company, called South African Druggists, became the subject of a hostile takeover. The many interested parties, one of them being Adcock Ingram, who were the biggest pharmaceutical company in those days. And SA Druggists had underperformed. The share price was sluggish. The pipeline cover was bare. Lots of inefficiencies in the manufacturing plants. So it was really ripe for a hostile. And against market belief and against common logic, the Adcocks bid for SA Druggists failed. Now, to many it was surprising. To Stephen Sard it wasn't. So Stephen kind of sat back and said, look, I've started this company in Durban. My intentions in 1997 were really to own 4 or 5 brands that I would sell nationally, over-the-counter brands, not even prescription brands. And that's, I'd be content in life. But I think the more he looked at it, the more he said, I've got to grow. And I think sort of the more that human conviction of wanting to be more competitive and to grow, etc., sort of took over. So that instinct took over. And in 1999, when the Adcocks bid of SA Druggists failed, Stephen was waiting in the wings. And against market expectation, he put in a blind offer, literally a blind offer for the South African Druggists business. It was a 2.5 billion rand offer. So you go back in 1999, 2.5 billion, a lot of money. And I think the rand was about 421 to the dollar then, thereabouts. And the market laughed. The market said, well, who's this guy? I mean, but what he had done is, he had really done his homework well, because I had sold my company to SA Druggists, and I was serving a restraint of trade at the time, and I was in the healthcare division of Druggists. And he phoned me up one night and he said, can you come and see me? This is just before we put in the offer. And he said, I'm thinking of putting in an offer tomorrow for SA Druggists. I sort of said, Steve, be real. He said, I am being real. And when he took me through the rationale and how he understood the business, it's incredible the level of detail and detailed understanding he had. So I think that's something that I've also learned over the years, that you've got to be decisive, but I think to be decisive, you've got to understand the company in detail. And it was just remarkable the detail that he understood, even though he had never been active in the management of the company. And I suppose the rest is history, because he made it, he had to do a 48-hour black hole due diligence. It went a lot on risk, but just the way he understood the business, he had mitigated a lot of that risk internally, the way he had digested the business. The rest is history. Financial Mail reported it as the mouse swallowing the elephant at the time. And he acquired this business, but also acquired 2.5 billion rand in debt. Jonathan Peregrine wrote some of that debt. And there were some pretty hairy moments at the beginning. Because in the first few months, the difficult paying the rent, woodmeat, etc., etc. So really a hard slog. But within 18 months, the debt levels had come down to, from 2.5 billion, he had sold off some of the non-core assets, the debt had come down to around a very manageable 250 million rand. And then he started looking at how to get this business right. One of the first things he did at Aspen, in 1999, post the SA Druggists acquisition, was we looked at our manufacturing facilities. And common logic again at those times were, and this is maybe what the facilities looked like in those days. Okay, this is quite an old picture. This is where we are today. But in 1999, people said to us, you'll never compete with the Asian manufacturers, particularly the Indians. Shut your facilities down, or at very least downsize them, and rather do toll manufacture out of India. You're never going to compete. And it was quite a tempting thought initially. And more we thought about it, the more we said, but manufacturing is the heart and lungs of the business. And in fact, we don't see it as a threat to our business, we see it as a potential future opportunity. So let's focus on it as an opportunity. Coincidentally, around the same time we were having these discussions and these thought processes and internal conversations, we met with the investment company of our trade union, Nicolaou Trade Union Investments. And we had the first meeting. It's a very imposing guy. His name is late now. He walked in and he said, I heard you're an asset stripper. It's just even what a way to start a meeting. Anyway, cut a long story short, I think we took an unconventional approach and we actually brought the trade union in as an investor in the Aspen business. And this is long before BEE codes and triple BEE, all the rest of it. We saw them as a logical business partner to grow our business. And I think they bought their shares at $5.50. And unfortunately, Muzi passed away about 7 or 8 years ago. We did 2 transactions with him. And I think the capital gains have run into billions of rand. So it was a success story from that point of view. But it just shows you, when people are writing you off and saying, well, shut down your manufacturing plant and rather move everything offshore and just focus on marketing and sales, how wrong they have been. And I'm going to spend the next 10 or 15 minutes telling you why they were wrong. So what we did is fast track to sort of 2000, 2001. Another interesting phenomenon started emerging in our country. We started in early 2000. You'll remember in 2000 we hosted the World AIDS Conference in Durban. And to a degree we became, to a very big degree actually, we became the AIDS pariahs of the world. Because our former president, the government at the time, were seen to be AIDS denialists. And it was a very tricky period for us as South Africans, tricky for a business like ours because we sat back and we said, you know, we're losing around 400,000 South Africans every year. You know, markets are made up of people. There's the humanity, the humane factor, and there's no quicker way to unwind the gains post-democracy than if you have a pandemic turning into a tsunami wave that totally consumes your country. And that wasn't an exaggeration. Those of you who are old enough in the audience will remember those dark, bleak days where, you know, there was a very real possibility that we could lose a generation in this country unless we did something, stem the tide, HIV and AIDS. And we sat back and management said, well, how do we get involved, you know? And eventually said, well, it's obvious. We must do what we do best, which is manufacture affordable quality medicines. Except one problem. The problem was that in 2000, the treatment cost of the first-line triple cocktail antiretroviral regimen was around $20,000 per patient per year. So clearly unaffordable to the public sector and even to most that sit in the private sector under private health insurance. So we had a bit of a quandary to deal with. What stood between the cost effectiveness on the one hand, patient access on the other hand, was patents, intellectual property rights. And obviously these drugs were all patented in those days. Patents are sacrosanct to any R&D based company. And we started saying, well, maybe there's a way of getting a license for these patents. And again, our detractors wrote us off, and they said, you guys are crazy, you should be taking your drugs, not selling them, and you should be confined to an asylum. There's just no ways. The multinationals would rather give up their families than give up their patents. That was the message. So, never wants to be deterred by a little challenge or pushing the boundaries. We said there's got to be a way around this. And what we did is we eventually secured a meeting in the regional office of Bristol Myers Squibb, who manufactured one of the 3 drugs in the triple cocktail. And eventually, after many months of begging and pleading we secured an appointment with the regional office in Paris. So we fly to Paris, and you fly to Paris, cap in right hand, and a video. It wasn't even a DVD. It was video in left hand. Cap in right hand, video in left hand. Off you go to Paris, and you arrive there, and it's as it is. It's like really a big thing. You know, who are these guys from deep dark Africa? What do they want? It's a hassle for them to see you in the first place. Then when you arrive there, you're demanding that they put you in a room that's got a VCR and a TV so you can show them this video. So we nearly got kicked out of there. But anyway, perseverance pays off, and you get into the meeting and you tell them you want to show them this video. What's on the video? On the video is footage of a clinic that former President Mandela asked us to sponsor near his ancestral home. And the footage showed that around 80% of those patients were HIV infected, and for all intents and purposes, those patients were on death row waiting for the executioner to come. Literally. They had no hope. Just a matter of time. And that struck a chord, and that was a bit of a tipping point. So if you ever, not one for memoirs and all of that, but if you ever got to write back, if you think back when you retired and think back on legacies and all of that, I think that was quite a poignant moment for me, because had we have not done that, I think the South African antiretroviral public program would have been delayed for around 3 to 4 years. And remember what I said, people were dying at the rate of 350 to 400,000 a year. So if you accelerated the program 3 years, it means you saved 1 million lives. These are all young lives, because the people that are infected even today are largely in the age group of 16 to around 40, which is also the most economically active population. So you think about it, if we continued losing 1 million souls, 1 million lives, what impact that would have had on our society. It already had a devastating impact. It would have been even worse. That's why we're saying, showing a video, one sort of little moment in time. It's interesting how that moment in time can save a generation or save half a generation. But what's the underlying message I want to give you? The underlying message is that, never give up. Often when the odds are stacked against you, you always find a way. Very often the way of doing it, there were a lot of people at the time in the early 2000s that were saying, let's break the patents, or let's get our government to compel compulsory licenses, or revoke compulsory licenses. Maybe it worked in our favour that we did have a bit of a denialist government at the time, because maybe it made the management of the patent discussions a bit more reasonable. Because had we have gone overboard like they did in Thailand and broken patents and all of that, that also has a negative impact on the country from an investor confidence point of view. Because it shows you irresponsible around intellectual property. So we had to find this balance between, denialist health department, patients, multinationals, and ourselves as manufacturers. We had to find that equilibrium. And I think the equilibrium we found was speaking to these multinationals. Lo and behold, about 2 months after our meeting with Bristol Myers Squibb, we get a letter back from them saying they're not prepared to grant us a voluntary license, but what they will do is they will give us immunity of suit, meaning they won't sue us if we exploit their patent in South Africa, the SACU region. Not first prize, but I'll tell you what, we jumped at the opportunity, we were chomping at the bit. In record time, so we had to develop our own data, which we did, our own clinical and own pharmaceutical data. We did that. Record time, we got our first antiretroviral, generic antiretroviral registered 2003 and launched in May 2003. We had to get the trade and industry minister, it was Alec Irwin in those days, to come and do the launch, because the health department couldn't come anywhere near. Anything that was antiretroviral related was a no-no. You'll remember the whole Novarapine debate raging on in those days. So we got Alec Irwin then, we turned it into a trade and industrial issue. We had to, and it was masked as that. Bottom line is, all we wanted to do was get these affordable drugs to the patients. Guess what? We brought the price down to $180 per patient per year, down from the $20,000 I mentioned earlier. So it became very affordable. We started working with those elements of government, particularly the private sector, the activist groups, civil action groups, the HIV Clinician Society were very supportive, and it was a real collaborative effort. You know, it was really putting shoulder to the wheel, and it became an issue of national interest. We're driving a national interest issue. What did all of this mean commercially for us? It meant commercially that, number one, we became the first company on the African continent to pioneer generic antiretrovirals. So it was a first. And it also meant that we could start putting volumes through our factories. And I want to go back to 2000, we were kind of SA druggers for a second. So I want to go back there. And also the statement that was made that we're not competitive to manufacture in South Africa. So we also saw this as an opportunity to leverage volumes in our manufacturing plants, because, you know, we always knew the size of the pandemic. Today, as we sit, there are 6 million infected South Africans, HIV infected South Africans. There are 3.2 million on treatment, and the health minister's plan is to have all 6 million on treatment by the year 2020. It's around the corner, it's 3.5 years away. So we saw that as an opportunity. It was an opportunity that worked. Because manufacturing is all about economies of scale and getting recoveries in facilities. So that worked out quite well commercially for us. At about the same time, Bill Clinton had left office 2 or 3 years earlier. So now we're facing another Clinton back in office, looks like. And Bill Clinton's focus, you'll know that all former American presidents set up a foundation, and they focus on 2 or 3 things that are going to change the world. Clinton's last state visit was in Africa. He visited 14 African states, and he saw the impact of the pandemic firsthand. And he said the day he left office, he said, "I'm going to get involved in action," and he did. And he looked at 4 companies partnering him to try and get affordable, quality, accessible ARVs to the African population that's infected, or that's eligible for treatment at least. And he chose 3 Indian companies, and he chose Aspen as his 4th company. So we got into this partnership. The way the partnership worked is you would forward price based on future volume projections. It's a bit of a risky thing to do, but it does give you some volume in your facilities. So we kind of went for it. It worked initially, later on it sort of caught up with you, but you know, things evolve, you shift your business plans along as well. And so Clinton had taken the mantle around HIV. At that time, Bush and the Republicans were in office. So the Bush administration sat back and said, "Well, we can't let this go. You know, we've got to have some type of intervention. Guys are stealing our glory here." And they set up something called PEPFAR, which is the President's Emergency Relief for AIDS. And they put aside $15 billion as starting sort of seed funding that they put into this. And they started buying drugs. So Clinton was negotiating the prices, and PEPFAR were buying the drugs literally. But they were buying FDA-approved drugs, because Americans said, we've got to buy drugs and give these to African Haitian patients. Haiti was the 15th country they put into the mix. So we've got to give these patients the same drugs that we would have registered in the United States. So therefore, all these drugs have to be US FDA approved. Was this facility US FDA approved at the time? It wasn't. Let's see this. Okay, so we had a challenge around FDA. Clinton guys, not to be outshone, said, well, we've got to be seen to be championing, you know, the least developing and the developing manufacturers of this world. So we're going to criticize the Bush administration for buying these drugs only from American producers. We kind of sat back and watched all the politics to and fro, tried to navigate around. I think we did a fairly good job. Because at a point in time, the pressure brought to bear on Bush administration was too big, and they said, well, we're going to have to open this up, but we can't lower the quality standards. So what we'll do is we'll assist non-US manufacturers to get FDA approval. It's a big thing when you get FDA approval because it opens up local markets for you. And we showed an immediate interest. Sort of the world was waiting for an Asian manufacturer, Indian manufacturer to be the first to get US FDA approval. And we put the Indians to it. So in this facility here, it's called Unit 1, is where we manufacture our ARVs. In 2004, we became the first facility globally to receive US FDA approval outside of the United States in an expedited review process for a generic antiretroviral. So it was another world first here in Port Elizabeth. So it's quite a remarkable achievement if you think about it, because, as I said, it's the last place in the world, PE, and most people don't know where PE is. I think they've learned subsequently where PE is. But in those days, everyone who looked at Ranbaxy and Cipla and said, well, they're going to be the first. And that worked quite nicely for us, because when you start getting FDA approval, your credibility goes up globally. People start paying a different interest to you than they did previously. It starts opening up markets. One interested party at the time who was sitting back and watching all of this is a Midwest Indianapolis-based company called Eli Lilly. And at around the same time, it's 2004, 2005, we started seeing the emergence of multi-drug resistant TB in South Africa, which is lethal. Mortality rates virtually 100%. The problem was that our newer antibiotics or antimicrobials were not working. So you were facing another death sentence. So as you were starting to stay with AIDS, something else emerged. The comorbidity between HIV and TB is 70 to 80%. So now you're faced with MDR TB. So another lockdown, another problem to deal with. And what they found is the older generation antibiotics, those that were established 40, 50 years ago, those were the ones that were working because the microbes had become resistant to the newer ones. And Lilly was sitting with two drugs, capromycin and cycloserine. I don't know, the name's not important. They were sitting with these two drugs that could be used for multi-drug resistant TB, but they needed a partner. They needed a partner that had the resourcing and the competency to register and distribute these drugs in emerging, least developed and developing markets. So they looked at Aspen, and they said to Aspen, you know, we like what you've done in Port Elizabeth. We're actually going to go a step further, and we're going to ask you to invest in a technology called freeze-dried lyophilization. I'll explain in a second. Let me just abbreviate it. It's called FDL. And they said, you know what? It's really a burden issue for humanity. We're going to even fund the CapEx for you to establish this FDL capability. Okay, what is this FDL capability? Many antibiotic injectables are unstable if you put them in solution. So what you've got to do is you've got to freeze-dry them into a powder, and at the point where you administer the antibiotic to a patient, you put sterile water in and you administer on site, on the spot. But getting the antibiotic into this powder form is a very complex technology. This is the freeze-dried lyophilization. And lo and behold, we established this freeze-dried lyophilization capability at this plant. Only one in the African continent and only one of two in the southern hemisphere. So, another interesting development, another issue to go into. And then you start saying, well, as Aspen, you say, well, we've now moved into sterols. And we've got FDA approval in a sterols facility. What else is a steroid? Around what else is there? Eye drops. Okay, so you start establishing eye drop capability. And look around, and then there's a company called Prestige Brands in the US. They market the second and fifth largest over-the-counter eye drops. The second biggest brand is called Murine Eye Drops, Clear Eyes. It's not a very original name, but it's called Clear Eyes. is the 5th biggest brand over the counter in the US. And guess where Murine is made? Good old Elizabeth. In the salt sand facility. So you'll see later on, here we go. So this facility here is the Stavros facility, and if you go to the United States and walk into Walmart and you take a Murine hydro pack off the shelf and you have a look on the bottle box, it'll say manufactured in Port Elizabeth. 40 million of these packs leave Port Elizabeth a year and they end up in the shores of the US. We'll probably be the only one in Walmart who knows where PE is, but nonetheless, it's okay. So that's another success, another first. So it's really just about looking to see where do the synergies lie, where do the niche opportunities lie, how can I act collaboratively, and shows you sort of one thing leads to another. And if you start applying those synergies, before you know it, you're now in the US. Now, in parallel to that, we started our offshore expansion. When we realized South Africa is only 0.4% of the world market, pharmaceutical market. Value terms, clearly, you want to get volumes, you're going to have to expand offshore. And part of that expansion was going into Australia as a first phase. So we went into Australia. We're now the biggest pharmaceutical company in Australia by volume, the 3rd biggest by value. And started with a very different business model, very different to all the other generic companies globally. What we did is we started acquiring. So Roshni, how are you? Roshni was at Aspen many years ago. So we started acquiring. We started acquiring what are non-core brands of multinational companies. Very different to developing your own generic products that you take in and compete, 20, 30 other commodity products. What we always recognized is that there's brand equity in acquiring multinational products. They're still sizable products, they do $10 or $20 million, very small for a multinational, but you start aggregating a whole basket of 20 or 20 million products, before you know, you've got a $100 million business, before you know it. So very different type of strategy. What we liked about that strategy is 2 things. Number one, your existing cash flows largely fund the acquisition, as opposed to going in and starting with a new product that you've got to invest $10 million in advertising and promotion to get the product known amongst the doctors. So far, doctors are they're busy people, not easy to see, etc. So there's quite a lot of investment that goes into developing these products. The second advantage of that strategy is you can line extend on those products. And you don't have to go and invest millions. You take a new product to market, your A&P spend is often staggering. Particularly in pharmaceuticals, where you're looking at a very difficult high-end consumer, because our customers are really doctors and pharmacists. They're not easy to see, they're busy people, so the investment is quite high. So, very different type of strategy. We went into Australia in the early 2000s. And we then started with all these opportunities that started arising in the US. You go into the next phase. And the next phase was we had built up a sufficiently strong balance sheet. We had progressing manufacturing. And a third very important thing, what Aspen always did well, continues to do well, is relationships with multinational companies. Remember the story I relayed right at the beginning? Instead of breaking patents, invoking compulsory licenses, what we rather did was go and sit across the table with a multinational and you negotiate a license with them. And we negotiated many different licenses on ARVs. We're now ready to take it to the next step. And you've got to evolve over time because ARVs are very unprofitable business today. Big volumes, no margin. So it's almost like a social responsibility project. So you've got to evolve into other therapeutic areas. And we had built up sufficient trust and confidence amongst multinationals that we then got into a very active and mutually beneficial relationship with GlaxoSmithKline. Now, when I talk about GlaxoSmithKline, Merck. These are companies that have got market caps of around 120 to 180 billion dollars. So now if you put three of them together, it's the size of the whole South African economy, literally. So these are gigantic companies that all feature in the Forbes 500, etc., etc. So to crack it with Glaxo is quite an achievement. And that's kind of what we did. We got into quite a strong relationship with Glaxo that really helped that their former CEO, who's actually retiring in March, he's a chap called Andrew Whitty. He cut his teeth here in South Africa in 1992 to 94. Helped that Stephen started knew this guy. It's all about relationships. And we were able to consummate a number of transactions that were transformative, company transformative. Some of those transactions involved acquiring global brands from them in some very niche areas. Treatment for it's called thyrotoxicosis, which is an underperforming thyroid. Areas of anti-gout treatment and areas of oncology. We acquired these global brands. We also then, in parallel to that, got into a joint collaboration with Glaxo in Sub-Saharan Africa, where we sort of combined our resources and optimized synergies again. And we did multiple transactions. And part of those multiple transactions was Glaxo acquiring 18% stake of Aspen. Always with an intention of diluting, and they have diluted, and their capital gain, their returns been fantastic because they sort of bought at 150 rand and sold at 370 odd. So they've done very well out of Aspen. They've diluted, and it opens up the space now to bring in other partners in future. So with the Glaxo transaction, what was key about that was it suddenly put us into global markets, because the brands that we acquired globally were brands that were not easily replicated, very difficult to come in for commodity generic pricing. And that's always a risk. What you steer clear of is a commodity-based business. Our only two businesses where we have these big commodity portfolios is in South Africa and in Australia. To a less extent in Sub-Saharan Africa, much less extent. The rest of our business is very much a branded business globally. So in today's terms, we're a company that does over 40 billion rand. So you can see this is we'll announce our results in September. So over 40 billion rand in revenue, and only about 23% of that is in generics. And the rest is largely branded products. So what this then did is it opened up the space for us to get into another phase. Another phase was to start looking at specialist areas. So about 3 years ago, we were talking to, and this is the value of these multinational relationships. We were talking to Merck because we'd done the odd acquisition in regional country geographies, Merck products, chatting to Glaxo again. And Glaxo said, we've got these two thrombolytic agents, anticoagulants, injectable anticoagulants. We call them thrombolytics, sort of our jargon that we use. So they were sitting with these two, underperforming, very low margins, and didn't quite know what to do with them. And we said, we've got an interest. And they wondered, why would these guys have an interest? Low margin business. What they didn't realize is in parallel we were speaking to Merck, and Merck had a facility, a manufacturing facility in Oss in the Netherlands, which I showed you earlier, one of the slides. And this facility was a facility that manufactures API. What is API? It stands for active pharmaceutical ingredients. API is the active compound in any drug that exhibits a therapeutic effect that you want. So it was largely a facility that manufactured API, and it also had 12 other products in male and female healthcare. So suddenly, we're not looking at this, and we're looking at the two Glaxo products. And there's another lesson to be learned here. I'll come back to you in a second. See the professors here. It's good for business school modeling, I think. But we looked at the two and said, well, are there synergies here? And we dug a bit deeper in the OS facility and we realized that they manufactured what's called low molecular weight heparin. So don't worry about what that means. It's an anticoagulant. And one of the GSK products that we were looking to acquire had heparin in it. So we kind of put two and two together and said, well, you know, their margins are so bad because they're paying royalty, very high royalty. I can't tell you how much it is, I can't disclose what it was, but it was high. And they were buying the raw material from Merck, who were charging them a premium. So suddenly put the two together, and you've got two very profitable injectable anticoagulants. Why injectable anticoagulants? Because we reached the phase of maturity in our life cycle as Aspen, where we're moving into super speciality products, the niche areas. And the niche areas that we like are those where there's not a lot of competition. They don't get savaged overnight. You know, the guys drop their price 90%, sort of left to pick up the pieces later. It's none of that. What happened is we said injectable thrombolytics, $10 billion business globally. Let's get into it. And we did via this route. So now suddenly we've got two products that are competing globally, and we acquire a third because when you get into that space, there are not a lot of people that operate in that space. So suddenly Novartis come to us, another Swiss global company, massive company. And they say, well, we've got this product called thromboembolics, we don't really know what to do with it. You've moved into the space, let's sell it off to you. And we do it, and it's got a different indication. Fortunately, not a medical audience, I'm not going to bore you with all the detail, but there's a niche positioning for each one of these new products. And then we acquired a fourth product, a heparinoid product. So suddenly we're sitting with a basket of 4 injectable anticoagulants that we've taken globally. And it's a bit like owning a global brand in the consumer space, but your consumer in this instance is your hospitals, your doctors, and your pharmacists. And once you reach that stage, then the world's a oyster, because every time there's a new innovation around thrombosis, people are likely to come to you, so you keep getting to the basket. So where do we sit at the moment? We sit with a 13% market share globally. We're number 2 in the world. And number 1 is a French company called Sanofi, who have a 60% market share. But we've got our sights firmly set on being in position 1 in the next 3 years. And I guess mind over matter again, I think we'll get there. We also moved into 2 other specialty areas, infant nutrition, which requires something called a spray dry technology, also not a readily available technology. But part of that was acquiring the global rights for a 10-year period for some very well-known brands like S26. And hands up in this audience who has heard of S26. Okay, no hands, thankfully. So that's really the type of brands that you're now selling in Mexico, and you're owning your factories in Mexico. So you've suddenly moved into the infant nutrition space. The third area we've moved into is the area of male and female healthcare. Also very niche areas. These are hormonal products. They require huge investments to set up. Competitors to move into the space, very difficult to do that. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's difficult. And you can keep innovating around it. So let me start drawing to a conclusion here, because I've had a red flag put up, so I just need 1 more minute to conclude. Because I could literally spend hours here. It's been a very interesting journey, but what are the thoughts that I want to really leave you with here? So the thoughts, I just want to flick forward here. Sorry, give me a sec. I just want to focus on the slide and sort of wrap up. One of the things we're very sensitive to as Aspen, never forgotten our humble beginnings and where we've come from. I think the day you start, arrogance, complacency starts creeping into a business, I think that's the day you start losing it. And I think one of the great levelers in life, I've just come back from Venezuela. I was in Venezuela last week. quite shocking to see what's going on there. And you see it firsthand, you read about it, and then you see it firsthand, and it really strikes a chord with you. So as part of our humility and keeping our feet firmly on the ground, we've never forgotten that around your investments exist communities. And society can only be strong and supported if you support the communities and you have strong communities around you. So everything really revolves around communities. So social responsibility programs are very important for us. And right at the beginning, when I started speaking, I relayed a story about Mandela's clinic near his ancestral home. We've kind of never forgotten that. So what we do as a company every year, globally, no matter where we operate, we celebrate Mandela Day, not for 67 minutes, we do it for a lot longer than that. So every year, different countries, all the countries where Aspen has an active presence. So whether it's Colombia, Brazil, you can see Brazil there, or in Ukraine, Russia, wherever it is, our staff take the day off. So one day that you can take off at Aspen, no other days, in case anyone gets ideas. So it's the one day that you devote to social responsibility. And that's just our way of giving back, and also our way of keeping the leadership flame of Mandela burning not only in our country but globally. So I think for us that's a very important initiative at Aspen. And this is just what happened last year. Okay. So I want to leave you with the following final thoughts. There are really two messages I wanted to give you today. The one message is what I've learned over the last 2 decades on at Aspen is that when you're in management, I think decisiveness and being courageous around decisions is important. I think never accepting that something can't be done. Anything can be done, and testing and pushing those boundaries, I think you've got to have that uppermost in your mind. Otherwise, you'll never have an ambition to get to the next level or to better what you had the day before. But it all comes down to that ability to be decisive. We deal with a lot of multinationals, and what's apparent is there's a lot of indecisiveness in multinationals, a lot of indecision. And I think what we encourage at Aspen is rather take decisions, but they must be informed decisions. Get some of them wrong, as long as you don't get them wrong more than once. But at least take decisions. Nothing worse than absence of leadership, absence of decision making. So I think that's the first thing that I really wanted to give. And it's apparent in the story. You've seen sort of where we've come from to where we've evolved to a global business today. And the second thing is sort of being passionate and living what you do on a daily basis. So what you might not know is I'm actually a pharmacist by training, and I remember about 6 years ago, my alma mater invited me to go give a guest lecture, sort of a lecture like this, and at the end of it all, the professor, the dean of the faculty said to me, but Stavros, don't you miss that human contact, the patients, And I said to him, no, I don't, because you can sign a deal for an antiretroviral and save 1 million lives, which is a lot more lives than this entire final year class that are sitting before me will service in their lifetime. So what am I trying to say? I'm trying to say that got a passion, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to exercise that passion in the conventional ways. So you don't have to sit in a hospital or a clinic to exercise it. So I always had a commercial and a medical interest, and this has been a great way to combine the two. And talking about great, you've been a great audience, and really most appreciative for this opportunity. And we'll carry on investing here in PE through thick and thin, and look forward to continue to make a difference to patients and the investment environment. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Stavros Nicolaou. Now you know why I said he's one of those incredibly instrumental strategists that we have the pleasure of having in this city. And watching his work and the whole team in Aspen has just been amazing in the growth and the development. And thank you so much for sharing that story with us. Stavros, what we then do now is we give 10 minutes to the audience. If there are people that have got any questions to ask you, usually I take 2 and then you respond. Or if there's anybody that just has something that resonates with what you spoke about and they want to affirm that with you. Are there any takers? Yes, Mr. Member. Let's see, your hand is noted. Any other?
Thank you.
Oh, yes. How can I not? Okay, and then the gentleman in front. Okay, so we're going to start this side. Reintroduce yourself because Stavros was not here, and just be precise and concise in your question, please.
I'm Tumisani Bebe from the municipality. Just a quick one, are there any business opportunities? If yes, in which areas? The second question is, how flexible is the entry into your market?
Thank you. And then
Good afternoon. Very inspiring story. Thank you for sharing it with us. Just one question. What is the biggest problem prohibiting South Africa from exporting? As a small entrepreneur, we don't actually, it sounds impossible. Your company was also just a small entrepreneur, and look at you now. So what was that entry to barrier? What is the barriers to entry to export your products and services?
okay. Just to be generous, we can take the gentleman in front of you as well. You don't have to stand up, sir. You can just, no, you don't have to.
Thank you very much. That is escape. Very safe to congratulate. Just want to check your experience, Mr. Stavros. Okay. I heard you saying something like our government, 2000, there was a little bit of resistance in terms of accepting the status of HIV and all those things. You didn't share with us in terms of other governments. You were in Brazil, you were in Germany, and so on. What was the response when you approached them?
Thank you. I think we can answer those 3 and then we'll start.
Yes, I'm going to start in reverse and answer in reverse. So I think, let me just clarify we've always enjoyed a good working relationship with South African government. And it's been a partnership, it continues to be a partnership. In fact, we had 5 weeks ago here in Port Elizabeth, we had Deputy President Ramaphosa and Minister Motsoaledi visit the plant. I spent around 6 hours at our plant in PE. So the relationship is good. I think what I was saying in 2000 is that it is a well-known fact our government were on the sort of borderline AIDS denialist. So meaning that we had a health minister that wanted to treat HIV with beetroot, and you know the whole thing. She had a very different approach to treatment. She was averse to antiretrovirals. And we know that our life expectancy as a country in those days plunged to 49 years. Okay, we now have a life expectancy of 58 years. So just by moving into antiretrovirals, we've got our life expectancy up by 9 years in just a little over a decade. And I must say the turning point was when Deputy President Mlambo Ngcuka was appointed, because she was the head of SANAC, a structure called SANAC, South African National AIDS Council, and she was the one that came in and said, look, we need to collectively work together in rolling out antiretrovirals. Barbara Hogan came as the health minister, and the rest is history. We're now in a position where we were denialists to having the largest global public ARV program. Our ARV program in South Africa is 7 times bigger than the next one, okay, which is the Brazilian program. What's interesting is next month That same AIDS conference, you remember there was a kid, his surname was Johnson. He died a few months later. He stood in front of that conference and begged and pleaded for antiretrovirals. We never got them, but his legacy has carried us forward. Now when the same conference returns, and there's about 25,000-30,000 people attend this conference, from being pariahs, AIDS pariahs, we're now the people of AIDS. So I think that was just that's the distinction I want to make. So it wasn't that we always have had a partnership, but with AIDS there was denialism in the early days. How do we relate to other governments globally? You know, there's always an element of mistrust between the private sector and government. This is globally, it's not just in South Africa. And we've always held the view, and it's been successful, and I think government hold the same view. Rather focus on the areas of commonality. It's funny, when you sit across the table and see where those areas of commonality are, then the stone throwing also stops. And I've seen it now with the scrutiny by the rating agencies. We've set up this process with government. We meet every 6 weeks with President Zuma, the finance minister. Every 6 weeks we meet. And I suspect part of the reason that we haven't got the Fitch report, it's coming out today, but part of the reason we call with Fitch, okay, fantastic, so we're 3 out of 3. I suspect part of the reason we haven't been downgraded, and it's really a deferred downgrade because we've got a lot of work to do in the next 6 months, is because the private and the public sector have really pulled together like I've never seen before. I remember a meeting that Minister Gordon called on the 29th of January at Nedbank. And it started off as being the most gloomy meeting because we were dead certainties to be downgraded. And I just saw a resolve and commitment in that room, despite what you read in the press, between private sector and government to pull together and pull us out of this crisis. For me, that's very encouraging. So my message around private sector and government is, if you focus on those areas that are common, you'll find that you've got more commonality than what you think. On the question around exports, look, it's very much a sector-specific thing, obviously. And what I am quite sure of is that a weak currency doesn't equate to strong exports. Because there's a strong segment of society that says, well, if you go back 5 or 6 years, there were manufacturers that were saying we needed to weaken the currency to 9 to 10 to the dollar. Because we're uncompetitive at 7, 50. Okay. And what's happened? Have our exports grown now that it's 15 to 1? The answer is no, they haven't. And the reason they haven't grown is you can't get away from the fact that you need to do 2 things still to be able to successfully compete in global markets. Number 1 is you've got to build a competitive business. You cannot build competitiveness around a weak currency. It's never sustainable. So you need to inherently and innately in your business be competitive. That's number 1. And number 2, you need to find niche areas, because if you don't have a volume, and more often than not we don't have a volume in South Africa, unless you're in the automotive sector where you land the 3 Series BMW and there's big volumes, etc. But generally, if you don't have economies of scale, you've got to move into those niche areas. There are many niche areas that South Africans have moved into. Just our entry globally has really been into niche areas. When I was discussing thrombolytics, it's into niche areas. So those would be sort of my areas of advice is build a competitive business and look at niche areas that you move into, not sort of the obvious areas. And very often what might be a big seller in our country is not a big seller globally. And you know, it's hard to go and invest in building up that same brand equity offshore. It's quite a high-risk strategy. So you're better off finding innovations in South Africa and moving into niche areas, would be my response. On the gentleman that asked the first 2 questions. So, firstly, let me answer your second question, which is around how easy is it to get into the space, into the pharmaceutical space. It's not easy because it's got high barriers to entry. It's a highly regulated, very high-tech area. But having said that, there are entrepreneurs that have moved in, once again with clever strategies and niche areas, been able to move in. And I think the important thing with pharmaceuticals is once you're in and you build up a brand equity and you build up credibility in the market, because the barriers of entry are so high, your success rate when you reach that point is also going to be high, because not easy for competitors to come in at that point and compete against you. In respect to your first question around are there opportunities, I'm not sure if you meant at an SME level. I wasn't quite sure what you're referring, but I assumed that it was at an SME level. I think the nice thing about building big manufacturing plants, and this goes to the core of something I'm very passionate about, we have to support local manufacturing in the country. The reason that we've got to come to terms with the fact that the super commodity cycle is gone. I don't think we'll see the rand going back to 6.50 Rand again. Super commodities are gone. What have we done badly in our country? We haven't diversified our economy. What are those economies that have succeeded when they were in similar positions to ours, post-democracy? They built up strong manufacturing bases. We don't have those strong manufacturing bases, so we need to all agitate. We all need to become manufacturing activists in this country. Because if you set up a manufacturing plant, all of a sudden, you get a mushroom effect. Guy down the road opens a small business, and he does packaging and labeling. Another guy opens on the road, he does bottling. Another guy opens down the road, he sets up a clinical lab, and now he's doing your bioequivalent studies. So you have this mushrooming effect, and that mushrooming all creates jobs, creates a tax base for the country. So it's crazy. The country, instead of, to your point, instead of exporting products, we're exporting jobs. And that's crazy. We have to, as South Africans, turn that around. Stop exporting jobs and export products. So, I have this all the time, so Roshni was my colleague, she'll know. The Indian pharmaceutical manufacturers and special export zones, they don't pay corporate tax. The corporate tax rate is 29%. So got a 29% head start on you. And all that you're doing, if you think about it, when those products get imported into South Africa, all that's happening is the South African taxpayer is actually subsidizing that tax incentive that the Indians have given. And that's not a way, speaking to your point and the question, of creating an SME industry. Because we're only going to grow economy at levels of 6% and beyond, aspirationally where we want to be, if we create lots of SMEs. And part of creating SMEs is creating an SME base around large manufacturers, because that's where the opportunity resides. So there is that opportunity, but we also need to change the mindset of South Africans. We need to start buying local and start buying locally produced products. Thanks very much.
Thank you. That was absolutely wonderful. Thanks for making that great effort to fly back home so that you could be with us this afternoon. Thank you. I love a lot of what you said. You left us with nuggets, what is important in respect of strength of community, being courageous before making those decisions or around making those decisions, and being passionate in living out what you do every day. And I couldn't have rounded off any better than you.